Welcome to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. Of course, I'm your host, JJ Kitchen. Guys, it's crazy. It's been a while. It's been a couple weekends, crazy times with YouTube trying to upload videos. It's not working, and then we finally got it working today. So there'll be more videos coming out during this week. But before you see those videos, if you haven't already, hit the like button down below. It certainly helps out the algorithm. But more importantly, subscribe to the channel. The road to 1,000, we are so close, almost to 900 subscribers. The show is great because of you guys, the support you guys have shown consistently. Beyond thankful for everything you guys have done. The show is what it is because of you guys. But more importantly, always, please hit the like button down below as we begin the show. But more importantly, subscribe to the channel. Share it with your friends. Get their thoughts as well. It'll be great to see what exactly happens here in the next couple weeks. But boy, do we have the topic today. Multiple topics, whether it's coaching right now in different areas of the country, recruiting almost coming to a close here as we enter February. It's been a hell of a cycle so far. Numerous guys being offered still to this day. We added a 2024 recruit. We'll talk a little bit about those coaches, where they came from, especially the new coaches, where they came from, what they're going to do, different areas they're going to be recruiting in. But also, too, we're going to break down Pitt's schedule that was released here just a couple days ago. Pitt now officially has a 2024 schedule all lined up. Two bye weeks. You'll get my thoughts on that as well. But before we dive into it, the sponsor of the show, Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Guys, of course, they are well known for their selection. They're great people that do work there, obviously run and operated by two great Pitt men. I've known them. They're great people. But more importantly, they support Pitt athletics. But also, too, when you go to Colonial Beer, remember to grab the Fake Slide Pilsner, which is helping benefit the players at the University of Pittsburgh. But also, too, it does help Alliance 412, which is the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. Again, guys, Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road, Bethel Park, PA, 15102. Again, go ahead, see them. They're in Bethel Park. Great people, run by Pittmen. Get yourself a good six-pack. Get yourself a good six-pack of the Fake Slide Pilsner. The Fake Slide Pilsner, which also helps the Pitt players, but more importantly, supports Alliance 412, the preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. Guys, before we get into it here, again, we'll get into numerous comments here that are already coming in here. Appreciate everybody. Again, if you have not hit the like button, please do that. And also, too, please subscribe. We are so close to the 1,000 subscriber mark, which certainly helps the channel, but more importantly, gets more opinions to the show. Immediately, as we get into it here, before we start getting into questions, some of the stuff I want to go over first is each of the new coaches that are here. And we talked a little bit about it the last time we had a live stream. Obviously, we usually do a Sunday conversation. Crazy times yesterday. The NFL, obviously, tremendous games. Unfortunately, Detroit Lions not coming out on top. It's towards the end of the night last night. The Baltimore Ravens obviously lost, which was a good thing for Steeler fans, that's for sure. But as we get into it, here on a Monday, the first thing I want to talk about is special teams coach, special teams coordinator, and tight ends coach, Jacob Bronowski from Miami of Ohio University. Guys, here's one reason, and again, there's numerous people. I saw numerous tweets, and I thought it was a good opportunity to talk about this. Multiple people are really upset in terms of, hey, well, they're younger guys. They're not proven, or, we thought we'd go after certain different guys. One thing I want people to understand is that, one, we needed a youth infusion on offense. If you've noticed anything, Charlie Partridge, who I can still consider young because he's just so energetic. The guy just doesn't stop. The recruiting at the level he's able to do it is incredible. But then you have Ryan Manilak. You've got Archie Collins. You've got Corey Sanders. Three more, especially really, really young guys. Incredible coaches in terms of development, but also recruiting. And then you still have Randy Bates that's there, the veteran on that side. For me personally, I thought there was too many veterans on the offensive side. I thought there was some complacency between some of the coaches. And again, beyond thankful for what those coaches have done. I think guys like Andre Powell, Tim Salem, and obviously Dave Borbley, three guys who were notorious in terms of going towards an ACC title in 2021. But with the way the season went this past year, going 3-9, I think we can all agree that 3-9 is unacceptable at the University of Pittsburgh in terms of what this team does in terms of talent, who they are, what they're able to do. That kind of stuff matters. And 3-9 is not good enough, and that's why you saw the change that you saw it at. But a guy like Jacob Bronowski, who really, he had coached a little bit in terms of helping tight ends. He helped out as a special assistant at the University of Tennessee, also did special teams. He was a special teams coordinator at Miami of Ohio. Won the award for special teams coach of the year, which, if anybody knows, our special teams this past year was absolutely atrocious. It's almost like we almost had to play a game where you take a shot every time there's a penalty on special teams. You'd have been you'd been wasted by the end of the first half. That's how many penalties there were. On top of the lack of punting, the punting game was absolutely horrendous this year. We look to see a change in that as they bring in more competition. We're potentially seeing more competition coming at the punter position. We'll see what that looks like. Junko is still here, but still room to improve for a guy like that and to bring in some more competition in terms of what that could potentially look like. But I'm really excited about this one because, one, special teams coordinator, we needed an adjustment there. Again, he won that award for a reason. Miami of Ohio, special teams coordinator of the year, but also to a tight ends coach, a younger voice in there, a guy that where he's being brought in for really the special teams portion of it. But he's actually done a really good job. But even when he was at University of Tennessee, from people that I've talked to, he did an incredible job. And this is a guy that's been able to recruit in numerous areas. You've seen him in the Pittsburgh area, Ohio, but also, too, he's going to have a lot of say down in Texas. Down in Texas, he's got a lot of connections down there. I think as Pitt continues to develop, it's more of just, going nationally. And it's not just in our backyard. It's not just in the DMV area where you'll see, Lindsey Lamar, a guy like that who's going to be a guy that goes in the DMV area because of his time at Howard, and we'll get to him. But you look at Jacob, and I think he's going to be a really good addition because it's a young, infused addition. He was obviously named 30 under 30 top coaches in the country. You don't get named that by just being some guy, just a random guy out there. You have to produce at a certain level, and Jacob's done that. So bringing him on, I think, is a really good move for Pitt in terms of the offense and bringing in another younger guy. It goes with Cade Bell. Cade Bell, a 29-year-old offensive coordinator, but really, for him to get the job at Pitt was very clear. He absolutely wowed in his interview. Jacob Barnowski was the same exact way. Really produced in terms of the interview, really wowed some people, very intelligent, has done a good job at developing players, can certainly recruit. But again, a younger face in there to where it's different infusion and much more energy in terms of being able to get these guys to produce and continue to develop. I think it's a really big, important portion of it. The next hire was new offensive line coach Jeremy Darvo, which came from Western Carolina University. As you can imagine, one of the things that really showed this to me, which, I saw this hire and immediately in my mind is, you usually hear Pat Narduzzi make the comment, well, it takes a year to adjust and you're still learning the offense. A guy like this being brought in tells me one thing. He wants the offense to hit the ground running ASAP. There is no lack or no guys being left behind. And offensive line play is crucial to what we do in terms of, college football or at the University of Pittsburgh, what they do on a day-to-day basis. Offensive line play is crucial. And I think that the team, the way it goes is obviously your quarterback play is number one, but number two, your offensive line has to be physical, but know what exactly is going on. And one of the things they do, the zone blocking scheme, which will be, again, brought back to Pitt. Again, you saw that during the numerous times where during the Sean Watson era. You saw it in the Mark Whipple era because it's that pro style. It's pro style, but they will be able to do in certain situations and in terms of different teams, like could easily do man-to-man as well as they're able to teach it. But a zone blocking scheme is what they'll be looking at. I really like Jeremy in terms of what his development has been. He's been, obviously, I think, in terms of his playing career, he played at Louisville University, which was great. Obviously in the ACC, but back then it was the Big East. Obviously, if you remember those teams, won a physical conference. But in his time as a coach, he's developed over 10 NFL offensive linemen. So what that tells me immediately is this guy can coach, he can develop. That's what we continually need. We need guys who can continue to be developed, continually pushed, new ideas. That's what you want to see. What I want to see from Jeremy going forward, too, is what does the recruiting look like? And from numerous recruits that I've talked to, they love, again, he's a ground and pound Tough guy, loves being able to, especially in pass protection, a guy that loves to get physical. I think when you play at Pitt and when you coach at Pitt, you need to be physical. It's one of the first traits you have to be recruited by Pat Narduzzi. I think it's a very big thing in terms of what this is able to look like. Bringing Jeremy on from Western Carolina is big in that term. I think it really goes into an aspect of that. And really, what really made me push me over the top to say, you know what, I like this hire, because at first I kind of had a question. Man, I would like to open it up. I know where there's some guys that were really involved in this search that really would have liked it from the Power 5 level. But when I saw Caleb DeBoer, who's now obviously Kalen DeBoer, who's obviously the head coach now from University of Washington now to the University of Alabama, the first thing he said is you want to infuse your coaching staff, but more importantly, your coaches, especially your coordinators, with coaches that they feel are in the right direction of where the offense needs to go. And look, if clearly Cade Bell thought he needed Jeremy here, and he clearly thought that the offensive line group needed upgraded in terms of development, but also two guys they brought in, Lyndon Cooper, obviously a transfer offensive lineman from NC State. He's committed to Pitt. He'll be here this year. Another guy you bring on for depth. I wouldn't be shocked if we eventually see one more offensive lineman at some point, whether it's in the middle of right before spring, middle of spring, or right after spring, when the portal opens back up, which the portal will open after spring for a certain period of time. I wouldn't be shocked if we see an offensive lineman added then to add more depth. But Jeremy, I think, is going to be a good football coach because he's shown in the past he has developed NFL offensive linemen, and that's exactly what you want. So the recruiting aspect of it, we'll continue to see what that looks like. We'll monitor that. There's things that, hey, personally, I think multiple people have questions about recruiting aspects of it. But when it comes to development, this guy certainly knows what he's doing. And I think that recruiting, from talking to numerous players who he's contacted, they absolutely love him. Talk about his energy, his knowledge of the game. I think it's so important when you have that knowledge and you're able to coach guys up and develop them. That's a huge aspect of what goes into this and really what's proven. Lastly, offensive coordinator, wide receiver coach Lindsey Lamar from Howard University obviously comes to the University of Pittsburgh to be the running backs coach. A lot like Jeremy, he'll be down on the East Coast. In your Carolinas, you'll be in that area. He'll help out in the DMV. But I think Lindsey Lamar is going to be a really good guy in terms of the DMV area because of his time at the University of Howard. And I think when you look at him as an offensive coordinator, wide receiver coach, the knowledge of the game, he's been incredible. Obviously, he was a part of the fellowship program, which was part of taking guys to the NFL. He was actually with the Pittsburgh Steelers in the fellowship program, which is huge. Guys loved him, talked about his knowledge, talked about his energy. That's what you're looking for. And I think the offense was clearly missing that these last couple of years, where it was almost like it was comfortable, okay, in games that were close, or if we lost close games, hey, how's everybody doing? Hey, we'll bounce back next week. No big deal. These guys, younger infusion guys who really want to win and win now. There's no waiting. That's exactly what you want to see. And I like about what these guys are going to bring to the table. I think Lindsey Lamar, again, the fellowship program where he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's a heck of an honor to jump onto that. I think that's incredible. It's perfect for him. But also, too, his recruiting area in the DMV, Virginia area is crucial. I mean, the DMV has been really good to us in terms of, guys like John Morgan, for a prime example, coming out of DeMatha Catholic, which has been a tremendous place in terms of talent that Pitt's been able to dip into. But we need more of those guys. And guys like Lindsey Lamar, who knows the area, has the connections to work down there. That's exactly what you want to see. And then, again, a young guy. You want a younger staff to where it's all about energy at this point. Before we go into the Pitt schedule, dive into some comments here. We'll be looking at it here. What coaches have what regions in recruiting? I can answer this right now. Obviously, Lindsey Lamar will be in the DMV area. He'll help in PA, Ohio, in Virginia, the Carolinas, because of his knowledge from Howard University and his time there. Obviously, in Florida, USF. He played at USF as a running back in the Big East days. He can certainly help in Florida. I think his main key will definitely be the DMV, Virginia area because of his knowledge and the connections that he has there. That's going to be a big, crucial part for Pitt. So I expect him to really take a part of that and really head that area. In terms of Jeremy, it'll be the Carolinas coming down to Virginia, Carolinas. I see him going into Georgia. He'll help out in Texas and Florida a little bit because their connections there. And also, too, then Borowski, obviously, he'll be in the Ohio area, the Pittsburgh, PA area, all of PA. He'll help out in Michigan, portions of there. That's really where he's going to be able to help out at. And again, these guys all recruit in ways that they help out in every aspect. Once they get a guy connected, they talk to every coach on the staff anyways. But these guys will certainly have a say at everywhere. But that's kind of where I see them at this point. Lindsey Lamar in the DMV area, the Washington, D.C. area, Virginia, all those portions, obviously, too, going into even potentially Georgia because Lindsey Lamar has connections down there as well. Same thing with Jeremy. And then Jacob being up into the north portion where you'll see like the Ryan Manilaks of the world. That's where you'll see everybody in the Ohio, your Michigan area, really where you really want to dive into the northern part of the country where they want to recruit at. Will Pitt have a man blocking scheme or a zone blocking scheme? Zone blocking scheme is what they'll have. If they need to go to man, they'll be able to adjust to that. But zone blocking scheme is where they'll be. What are you looking, JJ, looking for during spring practice and spring game? I can answer this right now. One of the, there's multiple things to look for, especially when you bring on a new staff in terms of offense. When it comes to the spring game, obviously, we see every single year, it's going to be vanilla. There's going to be no big time plays or anything like that. It won't be major high scoring. It'll be very vanilla because they want to be able to hide that stuff. That's just how Pat Narduzzi does things. I get it to an extent. I don't get it to an extent because it's not like it matters because you still have to. You're still game planning for a lot of what has to happen, but I understand where he's coming from in terms of how they'll use their playmakers. But overall, I think in the spring game and during spring practice, one of the things I want to watch is obviously the quarterback competition, which is going to be very much fluid through the spring and probably into the fall. I would really think Nate Yarnell will come in as a starter here in the spring. I really do believe it's going to be, opened up really to a 4-man race, in my opinion. I think, you'll have Nate Yarnell, Christian Veyer, Diffenbach. He'll be there, Ty Diffenbach, and then Eli Holstein. Those will be your 4 quarterbacks who compete this year for the starting position. We'll continue to see how that develops. I want to see, which guys really pick up the offense. I think it's, each one of those guys have the talent, but I want to see how they pick up the offense. Also, too, does Christian Veyer, who, when you look at a guy like him, he has the attributes that he needs to be a college quarterback. But does he protect the football? Does he learn how to protect the football? Not create as many turnovers where you want guys to protect the football. And we heard from last spring that Christian had issues with, not turning, with turning the ball over and having major issues in that portion. And we saw it during the season. Nate Yarnell was third on the depth chart behind, obviously, Phil Dracovic and Christian Veyer. Obviously, Phil Dracovic turned out to be horrible. Just didn't work out for numerous reasons. Obviously, Christian Veyer got his chance. You saw good times where he was able to make big plays. You saw it in the Louisville game, beating a top 15 team, especially at home in the rain and what that weather looked like. It was crazy. But you saw later on when he started facing even better competition like Notre Dame, the turnovers in that game, the turnovers in Syracuse, that stuff can't happen. So you want to see how that develops. Then Nate Yarnell, does he build off of what he did last year? Down the stretch, I think the offense really hindered him, but he was still able to win games, provide a spark a little bit to get a couple extra victories towards the end of the year, which was huge. That was big. He played well, but does he develop off of that? And also, too, lastly, Eli Holstein, what do we see out of him? Because he is very much going to be involved. From anybody that I've talked to, from grad assistants, from position coaches down at the University of Alabama, and I've seen the practice tape, looks very good. The guy is a super athlete. Just a big jumbo athlete, a guy that's extremely athletic. I think he runs like a 4.5 40 or a 4.6 40, can certainly move, and has a very live arm. Apparently his arm, especially when he's been thrown in the facility, has been just ruthless in terms of what he's able to do. When you're able to have a big arm like that, you want guys like that involved. That's truly what you want to have happen. Eli Holstein's going to be a guy where he's going to start at the bottom. He'll start at the bottom of the depth chart, which, I agree with because, you're bringing in a new guy. But from what I've heard about this kid, guys, it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. And I really do. I think the quarterback competition is going to be great because you're going to see you're going to see competition. You're going to see a bunch of guys out there. And the same thing with Ty Diffenbach. He's a guy with a big arm, very athletic, was a wide receiver for the majority in high school until his last 2 years, goes to quarterback. You saw in a couple of his winter practices up in California where he's able to just throw the ball around at will. I mean, the guy was absolutely able to just toss the ball around at will and especially put some good zip on the ball. So he's got a strong arm. I just think Pitt's in a really good position with the quarterback room right now in terms of competition and what it looks like. And we'll see what Cade Bell does in terms of development and what he feels like guys can really prove. I think Julian Duggar will come in. I think he can potentially be a great quarterback down the road. I really do. I think he's a great athlete, a guy with a strong arm. I just think this year this is the year he's going to sit back and learn the Cade Bell offense and then be able to really maximize his potential as the years go on in terms of being able to compete for the position and potentially start for Pitt in the future. I think it's one of the things we'll continue to look at. But obviously, too, the defense. We've brought numerous different guys in for the defensive line. You want to see the Nick Jameses of the world. Nick James, and the defensive tackle. What does he look like? Does Sean Fitzsimmons bounce back this year in terms of what his season looked like? Does Dayhun Hayes continue to take steps forward? David Ojibwe from defensive end from Clemson. What does he continue to look like? A young guy, didn't play as a true freshman. Imagine that. I mean, imagine how hard it is to play as a true freshman at Clemson. I mean, it's not easy. It's extremely hard. The guy is a specimen put together, man. He is a guy that's just tough, intelligent. His football IQ is off the map. We'll continue to see what he looks like. And Nick Matlock, what does he look like in a 4-3 defense? Wanted that 4-3 so he can jump off the edge, rush off the edge. He's a guy I'm very excited about. But also, too, the linebackers. I want to see what the linebackers look like. These younger guys, man. Jordan Bass, does he take that next step forward? He's a guy I think that can really potentially just jump ahead this year. Solomon DeShields, does he take that next step in terms of what he's able to look like? You see Braylon Lovelace, another guy who stepped up as a true freshman last year. He'll be back again this year. Brandon George back. You love to see those kind of guys step up and what those will look like, especially, too, in the linebacker room in terms of what that looks like and how it looks. But also, too, Cameron Lindsey, a true freshman from Aliquippa, the 4-star linebacker who I think is a tremendous, tremendous athlete. A guy that for me, I think he's going to compete for playing time this year, especially, too, on the 2 deep. I think he's just that good of an athlete. Football IQ off the map. Comes from an incredible family in terms of especially football and Aliquippa. They just always develop and always bring out the best athletes in the world, incredibly people, too. So the way they're coached, football IQ, character, just everything matches for Cam Lindsey. I'm excited to see what he's able to do as the season starts. I think he's going to really compete, and especially, too, on the back end. We'll continue to see what that looks like, especially to the cornerback side of the room. Obviously, Lynham, who came in, the quarterback transfer from Nebraska. I really expect him to be on the 2 deep from day one. I think he's that good of a player. Reminds me a lot of like a Jason Pinnock, a guy with size, able to move for his size, great hands. Would like to see what he does. I think he comes in and is truly a 2 deep guy right away, if not potentially a starter right away when that continues to look like that. We'll continue to monitor it, but there's so much to look for. The offensive line. What does the offensive line look like meshing with a new offensive scheme? Quarterback, we talked about that. Running back room, develop more running back styles. Rodney Hammond, give Rodney Hammond the ball this year. Also, too, get Derek Davis involved. Big back, a guy that has tremendous speed, physical. I'd like to see him more involved this year. Does Desmond Reed, the transfer from Western Carolina, does he take that next step from the FCS level to FBS? Tremendous athlete, but FCS is different than the FBS, especially the Power 5 in the ACC. We'll continue to see what that looks like. We'll continue to see what the practices bring with that. I really think he's going to be a good football player here. I really do. He's a short in stature, but he's like a fire hydrant. He's almost like a Jalen Warren in my terms where, guys, not tall, not a big back, but built like a truck. He's going to be able to really knock some people over. We saw a running back like that from the University of Cincinnati last year when he came here from transferred to Cincinnati from LSU, but we saw him here at Acrisure Stadium, ran for, felt like 1,000,000 yards that day in week 2 against Cincinnati. But we'll continue to monitor that. And, of course, the wide receiver room. Does Kanate Mumfield take that next step to where he reaches his potential? I think the offense was holding him back. I think the offense this year will truly be in his favor. Kenny Johnson, the guy that I think has just numerous potential in terms of what he's able to look like, speed, hands. I mean, a guy that catches anything in his vicinity. His route running has looked phenomenal from last year when you looked at as the season went on. I think he can potentially be a big-time target. Sensory Lee, CJ Lee, obviously the transfer from Western Carolina. What does that look like? Does he make that next step in terms of being able to jump from the FCS level to the FBS level? Not a huge guy, not a big guy, but a guy that has speed, great route running, great hands. The same thing with Raphael Williams. Played at Western Carolina, went to San Diego State because his numbers were off the map, had to sit out a year, comes this year as a grad transfer, able to play right away. We'll continue to see what that looks like. Just a wide receiver in general. And then obviously, too, Dejon Reynolds. Does he continue to take that next step as a guy where I don't see him as a guy that's a barn burner at all, but I see him as a possession receiver, a guy that goes up in traffic. One thing that he was really good at last year is catching the ball in traffic. Does he take that next step? But finally, does Gavin Bartholomew get the football like he should be getting it in? Okay. Do we see the development in terms of the tight end passing game, getting guys in mismatches? What does the offense look like? In terms of, we know we're going to run the 11 personnel, the 12 personnel. We'll run the bunch sets. We'll run empty. We'll be able to put guys in certain positions to where we're able to create matchups. And that's what Cade Bell is able to do as a young guy who's truly innovative in terms of what the football game looks like now in 2024. We'll continue to see what that looks like. There's so many questions that I have that certainly, when you look at notes here, guys, I mean, it's like, and again, I've just notes everywhere in terms of just things that I can talk about in terms of questions that I have just going into the season. There's plenty of questions. When you have a new offense, you're coming off a 3-9 season, you feel like you have a lot of hope because you have a lot of talent on the team, but what does that look like in terms of learning the offense? And I think that the way that Cade Bell coaches, and from people I've talked to, especially to people at the University of Florida was upset as hell that they couldn't get Cade Bell because of his innovative style of offense, where it's got that pro style from the Indianapolis Colts, where they're able to have that pro style offense. But at the same time, though, they bring in the spread with great, obviously, Hall of Fame University of Florida coach Steve Spurrier. Steve Spurrier, obviously, if you remember, his spread game is incredible. So bringing that in is what makes him so efficient in terms of being able to be creative, open spaces, being able to create matchups for his players. And guess what? The players love to play for him. And the amount of guys that wanted to come to the University of Pittsburgh but couldn't because we didn't have space. You're going to see people at the end of the spring, okay? And I've already had people reach out to me about this. You are going to see people from Pitt hit the transfer portal after spring ball because there's already too many guys on the roster. We have over 85 scholarships right now. They won't be there for the spring. But by June, we need some attrition. We need some guys that maybe will not be on the 2 deep to unfortunately hit the portal, just because of just the scholarship numbers. It's just how business goes sometimes, especially in college athletics now. We need some guys. We need some attrition. I continue to see what that looks like, but just numerous questions as we go into it. And I think that just what people need to understand is that the offense is going to look better. And I'm just very confident because, one, you go into a season where there's so many questions. But from the coaches that I've talked to that know Cade Bell and know the offense, and more importantly, defensive coaches that have game planned against him, one of the things that they've always talked about is just his just competitiveness, but his unique style of calling plays and his offense. It's extremely hard to defend against. So we'll continue to see what that looks like, but I'm extremely excited to what that could look like. Answer here a couple more questions. Again, guys, if you have not already, please hit the like button down below. It helps with the algorithm. But also, too, please subscribe to the channel. I appreciate everything you guys do. The show is what it is because of you guys. So, again, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. You'll know every time we go live. I'm going to be dropping videos this week. Again, it's really appreciated. Subscribe and like the show. Is SMU bringing back in 2024? WRW Pitt. Actually, this is a video talking about each one of our opponents coming up this year. I'll be putting that out this week. We'll be talking about that later on. Is the coaching staff going to hit the DMV and Tidewater area harder now? Yes. Obviously, we talked about the DMV area. That's going to be huge in terms of Lindsey Lamar and what he's able to do. But yes, we're certainly going to be hitting that. When do you think the first commitment for 2025 will be? Wow, that's a good question. If I had to put an estimate on it, I would say towards the end of the spring ball or entering towards June. I think that's kind of where we are at this point. We'll potentially we may see something in February if one player that I know is being contacted already. If he commits, great player. If he commits, I mean, that'd be great. We'll see if he makes his decision a little bit earlier. He's talked about making it earlier, potentially later on. We'll see. But in 2025, I think towards the end of spring, I think we may see something in terms of, the middle of April is where we start to see that first commitment. I really believe. Did you see Deuce's ACC Network interview last week? What's your take reading between the lines on his comments of last year's offensive practice issues and how Bell will improve them? So here's my take on it. Okay, and I did, Will, I did see the interview on ACC Network, which again, I think the ACC Network does a hell of a job in terms of their coverage in terms of leading up to the ACC football season. I'd like to see more games and less of the other stuff on the ACC Network and more football, because just football drives everything. But in terms of practice, I just think that they allowed certain things to go in terms of being lackadaisical. And if you remember, during the season last year, especially towards the middle of the year when Pitt was on a losing streak, Pat Narduzzi talked about in practice, maybe not going as hard in practice and noticing, what, he took accountability for allowing guys to not go as hard in practice and not pushing guys as hard and trying to keep guys healthy. But he talked about how the game of football, you need to be able to tackle. You need to be able to block. Those kind of stuff in practice, you have to be able to do. You have to be physical. And I feel like between, Frank Signetti and probably some other assistant coaches, they weren't getting it done. And there were some practice issues there to where, hey, you know what? We're not pushing guys hard enough. We're not developing guys well enough. And I think that kind of when you look at, look at the good coaches, they look back on that during the season and say, you know what? We need to get better at that. We can't allow that to happen again. Would you like, now, obviously, you would love to have that happen during the season and say, hey, there's a certain way we coach here. There's a certain way we play here. We live to that standard. The standard's here. If we allow the standard to drop to here, we're not living to our expectations. And guess what happens? You lose games you shouldn't lose. So you need to keep that standard here to where you're making sure you're practicing at a certain level and being physical in practice, being attentive. Guys, especially too when they're on the field, but off the field in terms of game tape, watching game tape, watching practice tape, game planning for teams. I think that kind of stuff really goes hand in hand. And really in terms of production of what that looks like and being really athletic, but really having a game plan put together to where these teams are successful. It takes so much to win in college football. It really does. And your offense has to score. Your defense has to be on the same page. And obviously we saw last year where the offense was rarely on the same page. Personally too, I think the offense was too hard to learn in my aspect. To a pro style system, I think that what Frank did, and it's not just Pitt, but it's also too from other universities where he's been. The common theme has always been that guys are never on the same page. It's kind of like in the National Football League. I've told people, if you're, like watching the Steelers, if you're having a legal procedure or you can't even get lined up correctly in week 15 of the season, week 14 of the season, that's bad coaching. That's bad coaching. By that time, you should know what the hell's going on and where guys need to line up at. Pitt just did that too many times. And I think it resulted into the special teams aspect of things too. But it also resulted into defense being tired. The defense was tired. But there were times last year when you saw, okay, look at Syracuse game. I mean, I understand to an extent that, one, Syracuse got so tired of losing to Pitt. I want fans to understand this. And Dino Babers is 9 years. 9 years as coach? He was 2-7. He was there for 9 years or 10 years. I think it was 9 years. 2-7. 2-7 against Pitt after that win last year, but going into that game 1-7. Guys, when you look at that, you probably get pissed off as a coach, especially when your job's on the line. You're like, hey, we got to try something different, especially when our quarterback's hurt. They completely ran a completely different offense. And I understand where Pitt's defense is coming from, to where, hey, it was your game plan against something completely different. They come out with something they haven't run all year. But the problem that I had in that game was just that was not Pitt football in terms of physicality. Guys looked too, like they're going through the motions or they weren't physical enough. And you saw numerous guys go through that during the game. And I think that's why some of them hit the portal and they're no longer here. There'll be some more guys that hit the portal, that probably, they won't hit the too deep. There's some guys in front of them, especially young guys. I think you'll see Isaiah Neal, Ghost. I expect him to step up this year. Sean Fitzsimmons. You're looking at those two guys in the middle. That kind of stuff just takes a whole different steam from where it started. Okay, and I think that during practice, Pat Narduzzi really saw that we weren't being as physical as we needed to be. One of the things I tweet out too from coaches I know, especially in the ACC, it's hands down number one, and number two. Number one, the hardest practicing team in the country is the University of Georgia, hands down. There's no questions. How they practice, full pads, they're going full tilt all the time. That's how they get better. The second hardest practicing team is Nebraska, Matt Rule. I think they run the practice is how I heard, and especially some of the film that I've watched, how they run practice. That stuff's hard. I mean, they are pushing. They are pushing in those practices. I think Pitt does a great job in terms of physicality, but last year they slipped. Last year they slipped, and it's the reason why you saw that 3-9 season and why it wasn't where we wanted it to be with par. People talk about the West Virginia game and how we lost that one, 17-6. Obviously, it was only 11 points, but West Virginia had a backup quarterback in that game. Obviously, a guy that you hear multiple things about how great of a quarterback he's supposed to be. Didn't turn out to do very much in that game. But the run game, they were almost running at will at certain times, and Pitt was trying to keep him in the game. The defense was doing a good job. And again, they only scored 10 points. They scored 10 points off a gain 9 yards because of turnovers by Dracovic in terms of, the interceptions that he threw, putting them in plus yardage. I mean, that's just wild. That shouldn't happen. But I think that's what Pat Narduzzi was talking about, and just being gentle towards it. And plus, again, I love Pat Narduzzi, man. I love how he's a defensive coach. I love it. But just, I don't understand the portion of it to why you're on TV and you're like, I don't like how he practiced. I don't, just the issues that we had practicing last year. Why you have to put that on national television to where people are speculating, and he said he can't say it now, but if you can't say it now, then why'd you say it now? Focus on the team at hand. And I think that kind of rubs people the wrong way, especially in the coaching world, how he just hits on people like that. But just that's Pat's mantra, man. That's just how he is. Let's see here. Hail to Pitt. Hail to Pitt Panther Fanatic. Pitt Panther Fanatic #1. Appreciate all the retweets and all the support that you give for the account. Again, if you don't follow me on Twitter, it's JJ_Kitchen40 on Twitter. So again, I appreciate Pitt Panther Fanatic #1. You've always been great. Byron Fleck. Why aren't there any new coach? Why aren't any of the new coaches, including Bell, interviewed by any other Power 5 programs? Byron, I know this. Cade Bell was involved with the University of Florida. They were pissed when we snagged him. I think Billy Napier, obviously being an offensive coach, kind of like pushed Cade Bell in another direction. But these other guys, I know Jacob Barnowski had two Power 5 interviews. I'm not going to say which schools, but he had interviews. Lindsey Lamar had interviews for other position coaches. He was an offensive coordinator, Howard. He was looking at position coaches in terms of the ACC and the SEC. There were 2 SEC schools he was looking at. And in terms of Jeremy is just obviously from the FCS. He didn't have any other interviews, but he's a guy that fits what Cade Bell wants to do, and he develops NFL offensive linemen. So I don't have a problem with it. Now, the question is, in terms of recruiting, what does that look like? We'll see. From players that I've talked to, they love the guy. And I think he's going to fit really well in terms of what we're able to do, what Alliance 412 is able to do. All that stuff plays into a key part. But with these guys, again, it could be a home run. It could be a total falter. But from anybody that I've talked to, when Jacob Barnowski is a 30 under 30 recipient, that's no joke. When you're special teams coach of the year, that's no joke. That's why he was interviewed by 2 other Power 5 teams. He had other group of 5 offers too. But obviously, Pitt was just a really good situation. He likes Pat Narduzzi, likes the team there, especially the tight end room. I don't have a problem with any of these hires for now. We'll continue to see how that develops. But they all have accolades. They were all being pursued by at least, besides Jeremy. The rest and the other 2 were pursued by Power 5 teams, especially Lindsey Lamar as a position coach, more as a running back coach from the ACC and the SEC. So I had no problem with that. Brian Williams, hail to Pitt. If you don't follow Brian Williams on Twitter, you should, because that's BJ Williams' dad, great man, football coach, football IQ. Give him a follow. Brian's one of the best. So appreciate everything Brian does. And Brian, we are certainly blessed to have you here. Especially too, BJ wearing the blue and gold. We love it. The royal blue and gold. Just truly blessed to have him on the team. He's going to be a major, major impact player, by the way, this year. Played as a true freshman. Hard to do. Hard to play as a true freshman in college football. Cannot stress that enough. Not just forget, offensive line is hard enough as it is, but as a true freshman, that's nuts. But also, too, any other position in college football, being a true freshman is extremely tough. I mean, it's hard. keep sleeping on Duggar. I mean, again, I think Duggar's gonna be really good. I think as a true freshman coming in with the options that they have right now at the quarterback position, not saying he can't compete, but I would truly be shocked if he starts. I mean, if he starts over, Eli Holstein or Nate Yarnell or Christian Veyer. I mean, that's a bad look on Pitt's quarterback room. But hey, he could certainly win out. He could certainly win out, especially two competing wise. I just think that they're going to try to preserve his red shirt, and they're going to try to let that guy develop because he fits Cade Bell's offense really well. And Cade Bell talked about that. He'll talk about that during the national signing period after the late portions done on February 7th. I think Julian Duggar is going to be really, really good. I just think it's important to, hey, if he does come in and compete and plays well, hey, then heck yeah, start him. But I think it's crucial to let guys learn, especially for a year, especially a guy like that who fits the system so well. Like Cade Bell has talked about how well he fits the system. I mean, I wouldn't mind. I mean, to be honest with you, I kind of almost like want him to sit a year to where he learns the offense, to where he's able to compete by, as a redshirt freshman and put him in there and feel comfortable. But we'll see. Y'all don't want to give Duggar a chance, let him compete. Never said he couldn't compete. I can tell you that. Everyone is learning. Quit boxing him in. I don't know. I think he can certainly compete. I'm just saying, I would be shocked if he wins a starting position as a true freshman, especially how he fits into Cade Bell's offense. I think it's so crucial as a true freshman that you don't rush the development. I think he can be a really, really, really good player. And Cade Bell's even said, especially in interviews where he said he fits the system so well. I just personally, I don't want that kind of stuff messed up. I think that he is going to be a good player, very good player, and I almost don't want to mess. You don't want to mess up great players. Let him learn for a year and then let him compete to where he's comfortable. But if he's comfortable this year, hey, they'll certainly play him. I can tell you that. Where does Nakai Johnson fit into that D-line rotation? At this point, I think towards the end of last year, Nakai started to move into the inside. Obviously, he'd be an undersized guy like a Kalijah Cansey, stuff like that in terms of size at 6'2". We'll continue to see. He can move back out. You would like to see him take that next step this year. Same thing with Elliott Donald. I think Elliott Donald, he started getting more reps towards the end of the season. We'll continue to see what that monitoring looks like during the spring season here. We'll continue to see what his development looks like. I just think that he didn't get the playing time because they were older guys, and they're playing older guys. Now, I expect him to get some playing time this year. I do. I think, Elliott Donald has learned a lot. I think he knows the system really well. He has that experience as a guy that's already been there in the system. He's going to get playing time this year. But Nakai Johnson, I see him playing inside and outside. At this point, I wouldn't be shocked if they push him back outside because of numbers. The inside in terms of interior looks really good in terms of numbers. But hey, if he fits on the inside, if he plays better on the inside during spring camp than he does on the outside, expect him to play on the inside. Same thing vice versa if he plays better on the defensive end side. But towards the end of the season, he was putting on weight to play defensive tackle. That's where they had him at. So if he's already putting on weight and he's still putting on weight, I would expect him to play defensive tackle again this year and add depth. And as well as Elliott Donald, again, I see him having playing time this year. The older guys are gone. The 6-year guys are gone. These guys got to step up. He's going to get playing time this year like he was towards the end of the year. That's for a fact. Jim, JJ, you see QB sacks return in 2024. Excited to see how some of the D-line transfers work out. Jim, honestly, again, I appreciate Jim. Appreciate all the support like usual. Jim, you've done a great job in terms of supporting my Twitter account, but also too here on the channel. So I appreciate that. I do. I really do. I think that Nate Matlock, man, when you watch his tape, and for a guy that was in a 3-4, where it's not really known for anybody, especially if you're an edge guy, there is no edge. You're playing on the inside, especially in terms of technique. You're playing on the inside. I think that his pass rushing ability, we're able to watch tape, especially coming out of high school, but also, too, when he had a couple opportunities towards the outside, when they let him actually line up on the outside, he did a good job. I think he's going to be good. Dayon Hayes, I expect him to take that next step this year. David Ojabwe, I am really excited to see what he does. I really am. You still got Bam Bremer that's there. We'll continue to see what he does. Nate Temple's back. We'll continue to see and monitor how that goes. But they have other guys that are on the roster as well. I think the defensive end position, they're just younger guys again. So we'll continue to see the monitor that. I think the inside, Nick James will be a guy that plays a lot this year. Sean Fitzsimmons, Isaiah Neal, Ghost, he'll play a lot this year. Elliot Donald. We'll see if Nakai Johnson rolls in on the inside. We'll see if Brayu, the true freshman out of Ohio, who was almost taken by Michigan State. We'll see if he gets time this year. Ty Uhas, a guy coming from Pittsburgh Central Catholic. We'll see what he does. I'm excited to see where they go. But we'll continue to see. But I expect the sacks to come back because that's just Pitt's defense. That's Charlie Partridge. Pitt's defense took that step back because it was on the field so much last year. I think it was just so detrimental because we were having 3-and-outs. I expect our defense to be back because it's Charlie Partridge and it's a Pat Narduzzi defense. I really do. I'm not really concerned about it. I'm more concerned about what the offense looks like and how that development goes, especially with the quarterbacks, the competition, the QB competition between all the QBs, and then how their offense is able to look in terms of what the offensive line looks like too. So we'll continue to monitor it and keep watching it. My man Brian, offensive line is built for that zone scheme, big and athletic guys. Amen, Brian. That's why I'm truly excited about the zone scheme again. And when you look at Cade Bell's offense, that's just his mantra. Zone scheme, zone blocking scheme, and big boys who can get out there, especially two athletic guys who can get out there and block. So I'm excited about it, and I think BJ is going to be really excited about it for a guy that, especially his utilizing his skills in terms of his strength, one of the stronger guys on the offensive line. But two, his actual ability and his athletic ability to get out there. I think he's going to have a big year, and it's just going to be a big system for him to really thrive and start preparing for the NFL. Are they doing a draft spring or ones versus twos? Adam, they haven't announced that yet, but I expect 1 versus 2s. I think you just get more out of the game. When you have so many guys separate on both sides, it's just unfair. You're not really getting anything out of it. So I really, truly expect it to be a 1 versus 2s again. Do any NFL players that went to Pitt donate to NIL? Yeah, I've heard Larry Fitzgerald, Aaron Donald, Rashad Weaver. Those guys have put money in. I know Damar Hamlin did a little bit of money. Those guys always do help out. That's why I'm excited about them. There are former players, but we need. Let me see here. We need more guys and more people to donate to Alliance 412. We need the subscribers to get up. And I've talked to people about this before. The NFL players, they're giving back. Obviously, Chris Bickle's huge. PGT Trucking's huge. They're doing a great job. There's other ventures that are currently being worked on to produce opportunities to build NIL money. But we truly need the fan base to get behind it. To compete in college football. I mean, heck, Ohio State, they spent $13 million this past year. I know Pitt spent over $1 million, that's for sure. But we were definitely not near $13 million. We need more people to get on board. We need the fan base to get on board. The season ticket holders. It's truly important to compete in college football today. We need guys to truly get on board and really subscribe to Alliance 412. We really do. It is so crucial in terms of the development of what Alliance 412 can be. And if we compete in Alliance 412 and we compete in NIL, we can do whatever we want. There's no stopping us. Any updates on the AD? Any more word on where Like sits? Seems like OSU may be moving in another direction, so maybe she will be positioned to cement a long-term Pitt legacy. Yeah, Mark, Ohio State actually hired the Texas A&M athletic director. That's been official for a couple weeks now. Again, I see, at this point now, there's only so many jobs you can take in terms of what that looks like. For me, I think her legacy will be cemented here. She's going to work to cement her legacy. Again, the stadium, Pitt Stadium, that kind of stuff. That's going to come up in the next couple of years. But the one thing that she truly needs to improve on is NIL. I think her job with NIL and Pat Narduzzi's job with NIL has been horrific. I don't. And again, I know I'm being a little harsh on it, but they need to be better. Alliance 412 needs support from the fan base, and we continue to climb, but it has to get better. We need more people to subscribe to Alliance 412, and I'll be doing a live stream on it probably and taking your questions or doing a video on it. But for me, I'm a 4120 subscriber, $41.20 a month, the 412 level. Obviously there's obviously to a 1976 level, which is the starter level, 1976, which is obviously the last time we won a national championship. There's just so many levels you can go to support Pitt, and especially the athletics in terms of the student athletes. But we need more people to get involved. We need more people to donate to Alliance 412 and subscribe. Because the more we get, the more money we put in there, the better athletes that we get, and the more continuous development we have, and the more opportunities, the more wins we get. It's crucial. Is our Alliance 412 competitive compared to other ACC collectives? Hell yes. I can tell you we are in the top upper half of ACC collectives, and that's because of our major donors, the major donors that are out there. That's how we were able to get a lot of these guys through the transfer portal. But to stay competitive at that point, we need more people to get up there. We are in the top portion half. We are in the top portion half of the ACC, but we need people to get on board to continue to climb and to continue to stay there. There's no reason why we can't. None. Just the resources that Pitt has, but more importantly, the fan base that we have. There's no reason why we can't be up there and consistently win 9+ games per year. With the talent level we're able to grab, the development we're able to have, the area that we're in, the teams, the players that we're able to recruit. Hands down, there's no reason why we shouldn't dominate in the NIL aspect of it, NIL collectives. And we'll continue to see how that develops throughout the years, where do players become, do student athletes become, employees of the school to where the collectives now work with, or go directly to the universities to where they're paying the players where they're employees of the university. We'll continue to see how that monitors over the next couple of years. But for right now, we need more people to subscribe to Alliance 412. I can tell you that. Let me see here. I'll take this last question before I jump into the schedule. Nate Matlock is clearly at Pitt as a business decision. He's a rental and hopefully a damn good one. Hell yeah, he picked here because Charlie Partridge, man. I keep telling people, and I'm just honest with people. He is the best defensive line coach in the country. Nick James, David Ojugwe, and I keep pronouncing his last name wrong, I know. But and Matlock, all three of them talked about how Charlie Partridge was huge in the development in terms of getting them to Pitt. Hands down, it was a business decision. They wanted to go to the NFL. They picked Charlie Partridge. It's that simple. Stephen Keel, ACC is going to be down this year. Pitt will probably be 7-5 to 8-4 team. They could be. I think they could be 8-4, depending upon what we look at after the spring. But I think right now is a little bit too much in terms of what the ACC is going to look like. The ACC is not going to be down again. I mean, the ACC was damn good last year. ACC was damn good. And they're probably going to be back again this year because Louisville's not going anywhere. Florida State's not going anywhere. Clemson's not going to go anywhere. Those three teams are going to be towards the top again. UNC again has a quarterback. North Carolina will be back again. Yeah, I don't agree with all that. The ACC is going to be down at all. I don't agree with that at all. I mean, if anything, it's going to be continuously competitive again. I think that the conference that's going to be struggling a little bit is going to be the Big 12 because the Big 12 lost its two biggest brands in Texas and Oklahoma. I think that league's going to be extremely competitive because there's just no major brand. There's no major team in that conference. That's why I think they're going to struggle a little bit. But the ACC is going to be certainly competitive. There are plenty of teams. NC State will be back. They went and got a quarterback, Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina. There's like at least 6 to 8 teams that are going to be extremely competitive, if not ranked. I mean, I think it's going to be a great job by the ACC, to be quite honest with you. Are you attending the signing day event next Wednesday? I am. I will be there at the signing day event. I believe it's just for season ticket holders, stuff like that. Yeah, I'm going to be there. I love being there. I love being there to talk to the coaches, meet up with a lot of guys, a lot of fans. If you do see me there, just grab me. Believe me, I'm walking around talking to numerous people, trying to get updates on what's going on. But more importantly, if you see me, grab me, get a picture, have a conversation. I'll let you know anything that I know. Love talking to you guys and love how much you guys support the channel. So if you see me at the signing day event, tackle me, grab me. I don't care. Just grab me. Believe me. All right. So lastly, the last thing I want to go over, the Pitt 2024 schedule. Going to go over a little bit of each one of these teams going through in terms of how good the team is, I think they're going to be, but more importantly, how much of a win and do I think the confidence-wise as we sit here on January 29th. First game, week 1, Pitt is going to be at home at Acrisure Stadium against Kent State. Obviously, this is a must-win game. It's Kent State. They don't have Sean Lewis there as a head coach for anything. They certainly lost a lot last year throughout the portal, throughout graduation. This should be a win for Pitt, hands down. There should be no questions asked about it. It should be a warm-up game is what it should be, like last year, like Wofford was, going into week 2. Week number 2. Obviously, in week 1, I have a strong win. I have that as a win. Week 2 at Cincinnati. This is a game that I will be traveling to. If you remember back in the day, in the Big East days, man, facing Cincinnati Bearcats and Brian Kelly, Tony Pike. I mean, you had all those guys there. Me personally, I was too young to be able to travel to any of those games. For me personally, I will be going to Cincinnati this coming year to watch Pitt versus Cincinnati. I'm excited. Fans, it was kind of funny. Their fan base was talking a little bit about how, we only had like 50 to 55,000 fans at Acrisure Stadium. There were some open seats here and there, obviously towards the upper deck. I'll be happy to tell those Cincinnati fans, hey, 55,000 doesn't even fit in your stadium because it's too small. It's a 38,000 seat stadium, 37,000, something like that. It's a small 80 place. It's not exactly the nicest, stadium on the planet Earth. But I've never been there before. I've only seen the pictures, and especially 2 people that have gone there and told me about it. But I will be going this year. A game I'm excited about because guess what? I call them a rivalry. That's a rivalry game for me, guys. Hands down. We got stuff on the line. We don't like them. They don't like us. It's nothing like Penn State or West Virginia, but that's a rivalry game to us. I expect this to go to Cincinnati, and depending upon after spring, I'll have more of an idea, what it looks like, but I think we can certainly win that game, hands down, because for how much Cincinnati lost again in the portal this past year plus graduation. They lost, the plethora. And Scott Satterfield, we'll continue to see what he does. He has, he's had Pitt's number the last couple of times. We'll continue to see what that looks like. But for me, as we sit here right now, I'm kind of confident going into that game, especially too with, hey, we competed with them last year with a 1940 offense where we were scoring no points. So it can't be any worse. Week 3, the backyard brawl back at Acrisure Stadium. Again, I will be at this game, of course, as well. All the home games I'll be at. This is going to be a big game, guys. Again, a must-win. Your rival. I thought that if Nate Yarnell would have came in last year, Pitt wins that game because they don't make as many turnovers. West Virginia doesn't score 10 points off of 16 yards. 10 points off of 16 yards. Take those 10 points away, they only score 7 points in that game. I was not impressed with how the West Virginia offense looked. West Virginia offense got better throughout the year, but they still, the one thing that I think people are talking most about West Virginia is that, they lost 2 teams that, they lost to Oklahoma, a really good team, but they got absolutely throttled. They got throttled by Oklahoma State, and they got throttled. Who was the other loss? Oh, no, they had a Hail Mary loss to Houston, and Dana Holgerson. He gets fired from Houston, but still, Dana finds a way to beat West Virginia. But all their wins came against teams that had non-winning records. That says a lot about that team and how they struggled, too. They on a Hail Mary pass pretty much on a last drive, they beat Baylor, who won 3 games. That was tough. They barely got by Pitt with Phil Dracovic in terms of how he looked. You looked at the rest of the season, it just wasn't impressive. And especially, too, you looked at the last game of the year. For 3 quarters, they struggled with North Carolina and literally an entire, second and third team. West Virginia was missing a couple starters. UNC was missing at least 12 starters. That was, absolutely ridiculous to watch. Kind of was like hard to watch for UNC. But, North Carolina stuck with them for 3 quarters. It wasn't until the 4th quarter that they finally figured out a way to go ahead and score some touchdowns. It was because of special teams and the defense. That's what made the plays. And I think it's going to be something to watch. Garrett Green will be the starting quarterback. We know he'll be the starter. The offensive line, they lost, obviously, Zach Frazier at center, who's an All-American. He's going to be tough to replace. I don't care who they put in there. He will not be as good as Zach Frazier, that's for sure. We'll continue to see what their offensive line looks like. There's 2 different guys left. We'll see who steps in. Quarterback play, C.J. Donaldson will be back. Jaheim White, obviously a running back for them, looked really good towards the end of the year. Struggled a little bit in the bowl game, especially too towards the end of the year as well. We'll continue to see what that looks like, but obviously it's the backyard brawl. You got to win this game. You got to win this game. It's a rivalry game, the second rivalry game of the year, the full true rivalry game on our schedule, the backyard brawl. You got to win this game. Then that brings us to week 4. Another game, Youngstown State. Of course, you got to have Youngstown the Youngstown State Penguins on this schedule like we usually do. I truly expect us, obviously, to win this game because I think it's just going to be the talent level that we have on this team, but also, too, the updated offense. And, again, I'll have more of an idea what our offense looks like when you're watching a practice, when you're watching, especially the spring game, even the limited stuff. You'll be able to see things where you're able to point stuff out and say, hey, that looks a lot better, and be able to see what does a quarterback play look. What does Nate Yarnell look like? What does Christian Veyer look like? Ty Diffenbach, Christian, I think you said Christian already. And then Julian Duggar, he'll be there. We'll continue to see what he looks like. We'll continue to see what the quarterback room looks like, but the quarterback room will drive it along with the offensive line. Week 5, we get a bye week. And something about this, too, I like this bye week here. I think after your first 4 games, you've got your Kent State and Youngstown State, which you shouldn't get too beat up in. It shouldn't be too beat up at all. But then you have in the middle there, you have 2 rivalry games against Cincinnati and obviously 2 West Virginia. After West Virginia, no matter what happens in that game, especially a win, you better not come out flat against Youngstown State because you don't want to come out flat because that's an issue. But a bye week is huge there. I think just get healthy, get it going. I think that's truly important. Week 6, North Carolina, okay, and it's at North Carolina. I think this is a really big game. Obviously, down in North Carolina, we have not done well. Our record during the Pat Narduzzi era, we've only won once down in Chapel Hill. We'll see what that continues to look like again until Pitt consistently shows what they can do down at Chapel Hill. Or actually, no, I think it was twice. I think Pitt's won twice during the Pat Narduzzi era now. But right now I kind of have this as a loss because it's just something about Chapel Hill. We just can't find a way to win at Chapel Hill. So we'll see more after spring and more into the fall. But as of right now, I kind of have that as a loss, but still a must-win game. Week 7, Cal, the newbie, one of the newbies of the ACC from the West Coast, coming from the West Coast to the East Coast to face the Pitt Panthers. Excited about this one. Excited that we get to face all the new teams that are in this conference. I expect this game to be good. I want to see how Cal does with traveling across the country. What does that look like, especially their travel schedule? Again, it's a big game. I really have this as a kind of an equal game at this point. I want to see what happens with Pitt during the spring practice, but also, too, I want to watch their spring practice because they lost a number of guys throughout the portal and through graduation. I want to see what they're bringing back, and I'll do more of an update in terms of watching their film, talking about each one of them, and maybe even do a video on each one of these teams in terms of what I've seen from who they bring back, who they brought in, what it could potentially look like. I'll keep you guys up to date on that, but I think it's a really neutral game, a new team, a Pac-12 team, now in the ACC. This will be fun to watch. Now, week 8, another bye week. Me personally, I don't like this. I don't like how there's a bye week so close to where, we had a bye week in week number 5, and then we have a week 8 bye week. You play 2 games, you have another bye week. I would have loved to have this bye week at least 2 more weeks later. That's kind of huge. But I feel like they did this bye week for a reason, and here's why. Pat Narduzzi always talks about the Thursday night games. Not enough time to prepare. You're always rushing things in terms of, playing on a Saturday and then going to play Thursday. Well, he's got a bye week, and we face Syracuse. Week 9, we face Syracuse on a Thursday night at Acrisure Stadium. I think that's really important, too. If I'm not mistaken here, let's see here. Yeah, Syracuse, again, I think this will be a tight game. I want to see what Syracuse looks like with a number of their new additions. I think that the hype for Syracuse is a little high for me. I think they've brought in some good players. I think McCord is a good quarterback, but I mean, heck, he struggled with, he had his issues with certain teams, especially at Ohio State, where you have the best talent on, there could possibly be up there with the Georgias of the world and whatnot. And he had some tough times, especially against Michigan and their defense. I want to see what he does in terms of what his talent level looks like at Syracuse, where, does it really step up to that level? And Fran Brown's a great football coach. He's from Georgia. He's from the Syracuse area, the New York area. A guy that he talked about this as his dream job. I truly believe him when he says that. He doesn't want to go anywhere else but Syracuse. We'll continue to see what it looks like. He brought in numerous guys from the portal. This will be a fun team to study. I want to see what this team really looks like. Obviously, after Pitt's really disappointing loss last year, obviously at Yankee Stadium, watching Dan Villari, a tight end, rush for as many yards as he did, over 200 yards rushing. was a tough game to watch. I mean, that was beyond tough. So we'll continue to watch that. That'll be a fun team to study. Again, an equal game. Week 10 at SMU, another new team in the ACC. From the group of 5, this will be a game that I actually go to down in Dallas. I've been kind of put this one on the map a little bit because it's in a different area. It's in Texas. We don't have any teams in the ACC that's in Texas. I think this is going to be pretty awesome for the ACC network in terms of viewership, what that looks like. Obviously, SMU has numerous millions and billions of dollars. I mean, heck, they're going to be dropping $50 million a year from donors to pay for basically like a TV rights deal because they're not receiving a full share in the ACC. But we'll continue to look at them. Obviously, they had a good year last year. The bowl game, they really finished horribly. They got their tails kicked. We'll continue to see what that looks like. But a fun team. I think the more we study on it, again, I think Pitt should win this game. So they're coming from a group of 5 level in terms of what the talent level looks like. We'll continue to monitor that. But a fun game that I will be at. Week 11, Virginia is back on the schedule. We didn't have them on the schedule last year. I looked at them. They're always a fun game. Obviously our record versus Virginia is really good. I think there's a lot of stuff that they need to fill. There's a lot of holes they need to fill. This is a game that Pitt should win for sure. I think they're still building. Tony Elliott has a lot to prove down there in terms of what their offense looks like consistently. Their defense struggled at times. We'll continue to see what the level of talent they brought in, and I'll be able, whenever I look at the tape and I study this tape, it'll be interesting to see what this team looks like going into 2024, especially during the spring. Clemson at home. Clemson back in Acrisure Stadium. Thank God. We've played multiple times down at Columbia, South Carolina. It's about time they played here twice in a row. This will be a really big game. I expect the way, if Pitt season's going really well, I expect this game to be packed like it was the last time here in 2021 when Kenny Pickett, stormed and took Pitt, to a great win. Could have won by even more. Could have won more than just 27-17 because of how well they were driving. Rodney Hammond, that was a blowout game for Rodney Hammond. It'll be fun to watch Pitt this year against Clemson here at Acrisure Stadium. The home crowd will be a really big portion of that game as well. In the last 2 games, Week 13 at Louisville, we had them here this year. We beat them this past year. Jeff Brom and Louisville are not going anywhere. They've got a lot of NIL money. They're towards the top of the ACC in terms of money. I think they're going to be a good football team again. They always bring in a good amount of talent. I know this is a team that tried to take Gavin Bartholomew from Pitt, that's for sure. They went out and actually got a tight end from Alabama. Couldn't get Bartholomew, so they got I think it was a second or third string from Alabama, tight end. He's going to Louisville, but they've added numerous players again through the portal. This will be a fun team to study as we go through it, and we get to see more and more and more as we get closer to the season. Finally, Week 14 at Boston College. This will be another game that I go to on the road. Boston College, I think it's school I wanted to go see. Know some people up there. Really want to go up there and watch a football game there. But again, I expect Pitt should take care of business like they did this past year, and they should be able to win this game to close out the season. So there's your 12 games. We'll go into the comments section here. You should give away a few things from signing day. Yeah, if I'm able to pick up some stuff up from signing day, I will certainly do that. We'll continue to see what that looks like. If they actually do give stuff away, I will gladly give it away, and we'll have a raffle. For all the subscribers, if you subscribe, maybe do something where if you get someone to subscribe, you get to have two tickets into the pile. We'll continue to see what that looks like. But from the signing day event, if they're able to give away stuff, I will gladly raffle it off to you guys. It'll certainly be a lot of fun. I want to crush Cincy so bad next year. Me and you both will. Trust me. If there's one team I want to beat because of how their fans acted after that game, it's Cincinnati, especially too how they struggled in the Big 12, where the Big 12 was really just a mediocre conference last year for how many group of 5 teams, FCS teams they lost to. I really expect that to happen again. And just since he's not, I just don't believe they're going to be good this year. I really don't. For how many guys they lost in the portal, for how many guys they lost in graduation, that's tough to watch. I think it's going to be really hard for Cincy, but that'll be a fun game for me to go to. I'm excited to watch it. My man CD, the eye emojis, always watching and looking out. All right, let me see here. Well, guys, we are at the hour and 10 mark again. Before we close it, though, here, a couple banners, of course. Guys, if you have not seen yet, Colonial Beer is one of the sponsors. We're actually going to be opening up and doing more sponsors after the show. So if you know a sponsor who wants to sponsor the Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen show, send them my way on Twitter, JJ_Kitchen40. We're actually opening it up to more sponsors. But our sponsor for this show, Colonial Beer, located at 4986 Library Road in Bethel Park, PA 15102. Guys, again, they sell the fake slide Pilsner, which helps support the Pitt athletes and helps support Alliance 412, which is a preferred collective of the University of Pittsburgh. But of course, if you don't want the fake slide, the place is ginormous. I mean, the place, the amount of IPAs, anything you want from there, light beers, anything you want, they have the options. The options are incredible there. But more importantly, run and operated by Pitt men. That is the greatest part of it. Support the Pitt men. But more importantly, if you haven't yet done so, if I can just grab it here. If you haven't done so, please hit the like button down below and subscribe to the channel. Share this video with your friends. Get their thoughts. Tell them to comment down in the comment section. I love to see the comments, things that I've missed, or things that you guys want to talk about on some of these shows, but also, too, different opinions. It's always good to have the conversation in the comment section. I love to see all your guys' thoughts. I know we have some more comments down here. Jim, potential 9-3 with losses to Clemson, Louisville, and UNC. That's not a bad one. We'll see how it bounces back. I think the ceiling could be 10 wins, but the floor could be 6 wins. You know, it's just finding out what kind of team is going to show up for Pitt this year, and it's going to have to do with the offense. The defense will be just fine. I'm not concerned about the defense. The guys that we've brought in, the depth that they'll have this year, I'm not concerned about it. The offense, however, we need to see how Cade Bell's offense translates from the FCS level to the FBS level. We've seen guys like Joe Moorhead go from Fordham to Penn State. How well that went from there to Mississippi State to Oregon. He's done a good job. But we've seen multiple guys from the FCS level to the FBS level do really well. My man Jason Watkins of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. He's the man. Guys, again, thank you. Hit the like. And just 104 away from 1,000. Share, share, share. Yes, we are so close, Jason. So damn close. Don't be a hoe. Share the show. That is exactly right, brother. That's what I'm saying, man. Okay? Don't be greedy. Don't be greedy. Share the show. That's what we're here for. We got great conversation. Bring more people in. But guys, of course, as always, I'm so appreciative of each and every one of you guys for what you guys do for the channel, how you support it. The subscribers continue to climb. Again, guys, cannot thank you guys so much. We will be back next Sunday. Sunday Conversation will be back next Sunday. I'll be dropping the videos that I was going to drop this past week because of issues uploading. You're going to see some really good videos coming up this week in terms of being able to talk about coaches, players, in terms of players that we've signed, the schedule, going in more in depth. You'll be able to see more of that. But also, too, the off season's coming. You're going to start to see some more player interviews. That's right. We're going to be getting some Pitt players on the channel, talking to them about the new offense, the new team, what's this team look like this year, and getting your questions, and maybe even doing a live stream to where they answer your questions live. Also, too, we are adding more sponsors to the Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen podcast. If you know anybody who would like to sponsor the podcast and like to have their name, their business, or any business that they run or any type of hobby that they run, let me know. Get them in contact with me on my Twitter at JJ_Kitchen40. I'll get them in contact, let them know what they need to do to be a sponsor of this show. Obviously, too, we'd love to sponsor more of these local businesses too, because one, it's nice to put those names out there and watch each one of these businesses drive up in terms of what the economic impact is for each one of these businesses going forward. So again, it would be nice. Let me know what you guys think. But more importantly, guys, thank you again for tuning in to another episode of Talking College Football with JJ Kitchen. As always and forever, hail to Pitt. I'll see you guys next time. Enjoy yourselves. I'll see you soon.